Welcome back, everyone. Ready to dive deep into another fascinating topic?
Always up for a good deep dive.
Excellent. Today, things might get a little, well, mind-bending. We're exploring the idea of information, not just as data, but as a force, a fundamental element that shapes reality itself.
Oh, I like where this is going already.
And the best part is, we're going to unpack all of this through a story. A captivating tale about a boy named Kai and his journey to weave the perfect fishing net.
A story about fishing? That doesn't sound too mind-bending.
Oh, trust me, this one goes much deeper than just catching fish. Kai's journey is actually a powerful analogy for the delicate balance between energy and information that underpins, well, pretty much everything.
All right, you've piqued my curiosity. Let's hear about this Kai and his amazing fishing net.
So, picture this. Kai is cast by his father with catching fish for their family. Simple enough, right?
Sounds like a pretty typical chore.
Exactly. But his first attempt at weaving a net, well, it's a complete disaster. He rushes the process and ends up with a net full of massive gaps. Too much space, not enough structure.
Ah, I see. It's like a plan without any real substance, lots of ideas, but no connection between them. All potential and no actualization.
You hit the nail on the head. And of course, with a net like that, Kai catches absolutely nothing. So he tries again, but this time he goes in the complete opposite direction.
Yeah.
He weaves the net so tightly it's practically a solid wall.
Okay, so he goes from one extreme to the other, no gaps, but also no flow. Kind of like a company so focused on rules and regulations that it stifles any kind of creativity.
And just like the net with the gaps, this one also yields zero fish. It's almost as if Kai is trapped in some sort of paradox. Too loose, nothing is captured. Too tight, nothing can get through. So how does he finally find that sweet spot?
Well, in the story, it's through experience, trial and error, and maybe a little bit of frustration. He realizes that a successful net needs both structure and openness. Enough information woven together to provide stability, but also allow for flow and flexibility. And when he finally strikes that balance, boom, fish.
It's such a simple but profound lesson. This idea that reality itself emerges when there's that perfect balance between order and chaos. And we see this pattern everywhere, right? From the balance of ecosystems to the intricate workings of our own bodies, finding that sweet spot seems to be the key to success.
Absolutely. It makes you wonder if this principle of balance applies to the universe itself. Perhaps the very fabric of reality is a result of this delicate interplay between energy and information woven together in just the right way to allow for, well, everything we see and experience.
Okay, but the story doesn't end with Kai simply catching fish, does it?
No, it takes a fascinating turn. Kai becomes so skilled at weaving that he begins to see the entire world through the lens of his craft. He sees the interconnectedness of everything, the patterns and structures that hold it all together, and then, in a moment of pure inspiration, he sets out on a seemingly impossible task. He decides to weave a net so vast that it encompasses the entire world.
Whoa, hold on. Weaving the entire world with a net, what does that even mean?
Well, if we view information as a force that structures energy, then Kai's act of weaving the world suggests an incredible possibility. Mastering the structuring of information could allow us to shape, well, anything.
Okay, now my mind is officially blown. Are you suggesting that if we cracked the code of this information game, we could reshape reality itself?
It's a profound concept, isn't it? It begs the question, what are the limits of what's possible when we truly understand how information, energy, and systems interact?
All right, I need a moment to process all of this. So we've got this incredible story about a boy weaving the world with his net. And somehow it's a metaphor for the fundamental forces shaping reality itself. But how do we bridge the gap between this beautiful story and the complexities of, well, physics, energy, and even consciousness?
That's where things get really interesting, and that's exactly what we'll be exploring in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, so we've established that Kai's journey with his fishing net is way more than just a charming story. It's a powerful metaphor for how information and energy shape, well, everything around us. But how do we actually use this? How do we go from, weaving fishing nets to weaving solutions for real-world problems?
Well, it's just like how Kai didn't start by trying to weave the whole world. We can start with specific areas, like energy systems, for instance.
Okay, so instead of our current energy systems, like fossil fuels, we'd have these dynamic systems, right? Ones that adjust to, like, real-time needs. maybe pulling energy from different sources.
Exactly. Imagine like a city where energy flows kind of like water in a stream, adjusting to the changes in demand and everything.
So buildings could generate their own power and then share it with other buildings, kind of like a decentralized network.
Exactly. More resilient and way more efficient.
That makes sense for energy. But what about AI? Could we use this information as structure concept to, like, revolutionize AI?
Absolutely. Right now, AI is mostly based on these rigid algorithms. They
Hmm.
just process data in a very linear way.
Yeah, yeah.
But imagine if we created an AI that could, like, learn and adapt, almost like a living system, constantly weaving and reweaving solutions based on new information.
So instead of just crunching numbers, this AI would actually be able to, like, understand the information.
Exactly. It would go from just calculation to, like, actual comprehension.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty amazing. But what about, the most complex system we know of, the human brain? Could this idea change how we understand how our own minds work?
Well, think of your brain not as just this storage unit for information, but like this huge complex web,
Mm.
constantly weaving together thoughts and experiences. Every little interaction, every piece of information you encounter, it's like a thread in this big tapestry.
So are you saying that my thoughts aren't really like mine?
Yeah.
That they're just like products of this constant flow of information?
That brings us to a really crucial point. Information isn't just something that we receive passively. It's like this active force. It shapes us, how we think, how we see the world, everything.
But if information is actually shaping reality, does that mean we don't have free will? Are we all just following some kind of predetermined pattern? Like, are we really in control?
Now that's the question, isn't it? And it's one that, well, people have been debating for centuries. It's really at the core of what it means to be human.
Right. It's a big one.
But maybe before we go too far down that road, we should look at some guidelines, for navigating this whole information and energy landscape.
Guidelines. You mean like a user manual for reality?
Haha, you could say that. Remember those commandments of energy we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
Well, those offer a framework for understanding how these forces work and how we can use them more effectively.
Okay, so let's open up this cosmic user manual and see what's inside. What are some of the key principles from these commandments?
Well, one of the most important is that energy and information, they're separate, but they're also completely intertwined. You can't have one without the other.
So energy is like the fuel and information is the map. We need both to go anywhere.
Exactly. Another key commandment is all about efficiency. Any system that wastes too much energy, it'll eventually collapse. It doesn't matter if we're talking about like biological organisms or technologies we create.
Makes sense. Survival of the fittest,
Yeah.
right? The ones who use energy and information best, they're the ones who thrive.
Exactly. And it's not just about surviving. Efficiency pushes innovation and progress. The better we are at processing information and using energy, the more complex and sophisticated our creations can be.
It's like Kai getting better at weaving his net. Each time it's more effective, right?
Yeah. So we're not just surviving, we're thriving. We're reaching new levels of understanding and creating things we never even thought possible.
But isn't there a risk? Like in our pursuit of efficiency, we could lose something important. Like what about creativity or even, a little bit of chaos? Don't those things play a role too? It's like if we're not careful, we'll end up with this like perfectly ordered world, but it'll be, I don't know, kind of sterile.
Exactly. That's where another commandment comes in. Adaptation. Efficiency is important, yeah. But we can't forget about flexibility.
We got to be able to adjust,
Yeah.
right? To new information, new situations, even a little bit of like chaos.
You think of it like even the best net weaver. They have to change their technique depending on what they're trying to catch, the currents, the weather, all of that.
So any system we build has to be able to adapt, to learn, to change. Otherwise, it just won't work.
We've come a long way from that story about Kai, haven't we? We
Right.
started with fishing nets, and now we're talking about the very nature of reality.
It's crazy how these ideas all connect, though. There's
Yeah.
this underlying theme of balance.
Yeah.
Like it's everywhere.
It's a whole new way of looking at the world. It shows how everything is connected. Like we're all part of this big cosmic tapestry.
But if we're all just threads in that tapestry, does that mean our choices don't matter?
Mm.
Are we actually shaping reality? Or are we just like following a pattern that's already set?
That's the big question, isn't it? And honestly, we might never know for sure.
Maybe that's okay, though. Maybe it's the journey that matters. The fact that we can weave our own nets, make choices, shape our experiences.
So maybe we don't have all the answers. But at least we have this framework to guide us, right? We can be aware of these principles and use them to create something, something meaningful.
This whole deep dive has been mind-blowing. I mean, we've gone deep into some seriously complex ideas, but it's amazing how it all comes back to that simple story about Kai and his net.
It shows that even the most complicated ideas can be understood through something familiar.
And it reminds us that we all have the power to, shape our own destinies. We can contribute to this whole tapestry of reality.
It's a big responsibility, but it's also a huge opportunity.
So as we wrap things up here, let's hold on to that image. Kai weaving his net. With skill, with purpose. Understanding the forces at play.
May we all be those conscious weavers, shaping the world with intention and creativity, and always remembering that delicate balance that holds everything together.
This has been an amazing journey. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, keep weaving, keep exploring, and keep searching for that perfect balance.